We'll call the meeting to order and have the roll call.
Mr. Fiddler.
Here.
Mr. Overland.
Here.
Mr. Love.
Here.
Mr. Burridge.
Here.
Mr. Huckabee.
Here.
Mr. Alexander.
Here.
Mr. Burgess.
Here.
Mr. Regan.
We have a quorum to conduct business, and first we'd like to welcome Albert Ashwood. How you doing, Albert? Is with Emergency Management, and we certainly need you. Also, we'd like to say hi to Gene Wallace with the county. Where's Gene? There he is. There's no problems in the counties, so. We appreciate you guys coming today. We'll try to entertain you with a lot of exciting events, because they are certainly going on. Turn it over to the director for recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Secretary. We had a prestigious event occur with our McClellan Kerr navigation system. It was recently elevated from a corridor, from a connector to a corridor at the federal level. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Dee Dee Smith, our waterways manager, to come forward and introduce a couple of guests that she has with us and explain more about the.
Certainly.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, and Secretary Ridley. I am so privileged to be here, and I appreciate you letting me take the time to go over the important role that the McCarns plays in the movement of waterborne commerce, and as well as the recognition of the upgrading status in two important areas. Gene Higginbotham with the Arkansas Waterways Commission is my counterpart. He's the executive director. And I've brought Mr. Steve Taylor. He is the executive director of Oakley Port 33 here in Oklahoma. One of the upgrades in status was from the U.S. Department of Transportation. The Marine Highway 40 system was elevated, like Director Patterson said, from a connector to a corridor. The Marine Highway system was originally developed to relieve landslide congestion, reduce air emissions, and also generate other public interest by increasing the efficiency of surface transportation. And the M40 corridor is actually an alternate freight route for the I-40 corridor that runs through Oklahoma and Arkansas. Gene Higginbotham and I jointly submitted the letter of application to the U.S. Department of Transportation as co-sponsors for the Oklahoma Department of Transportation and the Arkansas Waterways Commission to represent both of our states. It's quite, if you can see the map above, there is a dotted line where the M40 is. It will now be a solid line, and it puts us in league with the other high-use river systems like the Illinois, Ohio, and Mississippi River. This will allow us to get more opportunities for grant funding to improve ports, and also acknowledges the fact that the MCARNs represent several states within the region. We were able to obtain letters of support from all of the congressional delegates from Oklahoma and Arkansas, and also from Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins from the state of Kansas. Letters of support were also obtained from the metropolitan planning organizations, economic development councils, NCOG, and the stakeholders along the system. In addition, the other upgrade in status was from the Corps of Engineers. They changed our usage from a moderate to a high-use river, which will allow for additional funding packets to be put into the Corps of Engineers budget to fund much-needed navigation projects on the MCARNs. This could only have been done through the hard work of the stakeholders along the MCARNs, like Mr. Steve Taylor at Oakley Port 33, through their dedication. It was required that 10 million tons, 3.3 billion ton miles, averaged over a 5-year period of time, were required in order to obtain this status. So they've been working really hard. This is really quite an accomplishment for everybody on the team. Our navigation system is such an important part for Oklahoma, for the development of industries coming and job creation, and it's actually a unique asset that we should be very grateful for all the benefits that it provides. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you, Dee Dee. I appreciate that, and I appreciate Mr. Higginbotham coming over from Arkansas to join us today. But I also want to thank Steve Taylor. As Dee Dee indicated, Steve is a tireless worker about issues on the McCarns, and Steve is a member of the Waterways Advisory Board that helps keep me abreast of issues along the waterways. And so, Steve, thank you very much for all you do for us.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Chairman, the next item has to do with the good folks sitting at this table to my left. As we all recall, the issues that we had with the Purcell-Lexington Bridge and the 6 months of effort that went into replacing all that. At the end of that effort, there was the grand opening, or grand reopening of the Lexington-Purcell Bridge. And there was a press release developed and all of the things that go about a press event. Terry Angier and her team won the award for the best press event from the Oklahoma chapter. I've lost it, I'm sorry. Oklahoma Chapter Society of Professional Journalists. So if I could, Mr. Chairman, if you would join me down here, I'd like to present this to Terry, and if Terry has a few words, because she's a woman of many words, she surely will have some words. Terry, if you come forward. And anybody else you want to bring with you? Okay. You want to say a few words first?
I get very shy behind the microphone, but no, it's an honor truly, because this group, Society of Professional Journalists, my colleagues here, that's a huge honor in our business. Normally, they're very stingy about giving awards to PR people, so it's a huge honor when we get it from this group, and that's the only reason we stand before you to accept it. And I want to ask Cody and Mills to join me. There was a few others who were involved in this. Of course, the whole office comes together. But when this is about press releases, we wanted to keep it specific. So.
Thank you, Director Patterson. We'll hear a motion to approve the minutes of the May 4th, 2015 meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have the consent docket next, items 70 through 73. If there's a member of the commission that would like to pull one of those out and discuss it separately, let it be known. Otherwise, we'll hear a motion for the consent docket.
Move to approve the consent docket.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 74 will be presented by Mr. Teager.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Secretary. Item 74, I have one contract this month for engineering contracts. It's in Pawnee County in District 8. This is to provide preliminary engineering and construction plans for US 64 and US 412. It's a pipe replacement project. It's about 7 miles long. It's with Cabinets Engineering for $216,900. Commission approval is recommended.
Move to approve item 74.
We have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler?
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Mr. Burridge?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Aye.
Item 74 passes. We'll hear the engineering contract supplements. Item 74, I mean. We'll hear item 75.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 5 parts this month. Parts A and B are both statewide contracts. Part A is all districts. It's an on-demand contract with supplement with Bearing Tree Land Surveying for mobile LiDAR mapping for $500,000. Part B is also statewide. It's an on-call contract with Garver Engineering. This is to provide services for our way station facilities for $1 million. Part C, Kingfisher County. It's US 81 reconstructions, 5.4 miles north of the Canadian County line. It's about a 3-mile project with Cabinets Engineering for $23,900. Part D in Oklahoma County, District 4. Excuse me. You have additional services to final the construction plans for 50th Street, MacArthur Boulevard, and War Acres. This is with Smith Roberts Boulderschwaller for $37,401. And Part E in Harmon County in Division 5, additional services to prepare final plans for State Highway 30 over Salt Fork Creek of the Red River. This is with Triad Design Group for $11,049. Commission approval is recommended.
You've heard the recommendation. What's your pleasure for item 75?
Motion to approve item 75.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler?
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Mr. Burridge?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Aye.
Item 75 passes. We'll hear item 76, the lettings.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, and members of the Commission. Agenda item 76 consists of the final August, tentative September, tentative October 2015 bid opening, and the department requests and recommends approval of this item.
You've heard the recommendation.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler?
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Mr. Burridge?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Aye.
Item 76 passes. We'll hear item 77. Mr. Raymond makes his way forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, members of the Commission. I'd like to present item 77, parts A through X. These represent the change orders on projects with a cumulative total of $50,000 or less of change orders. This item is presented for your information only. No action is necessary, but I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions of Mr. Raymond? Move to the next item.
Thank you. I'd like to present item 78, parts A through V. These represent the change orders with a cumulative total greater than $50,000 on each of their projects, and your approval is recommended.
You've heard the recommendation.
Motion approved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? No discussion for item 78. Call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler?
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Mr. Burridge?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 78 passes. We will have Mr. Green present item 79.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Secretary. Item 79 is an update on the I-44 Belle Isle Bridge emergency project. As directed by the Commission at the May Commission meeting, an emergency letting was held on May 20th. Sherwood Construction out of Tulsa was awarded the contract with a base bid of $13.5 million. Work began at midnight on May 21st. A lot of that work consisted of building access roads. It's pretty wet and swampy with all the rain we've had, and also delivering materials and equipment to the site. To date, they've done some shoring on the 5 critical piers that we need to open I-44 to all 3 lanes of traffic. So we're well on our way. We're just getting started, but just wanted to update you on where we were at with that contract. It's very important to us. We have some incentives built into that contract to get this work done and get all the lanes open promptly. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, to be clear, you're into the construction, but you're opening the lanes.
We won't be opening a lane till we get those 5 piers done, shored
Okay.
up and concrete poured around them. So,
what's the timing on that?
well, it'll probably be in the next 10 to 15 days, I would say. And again, it's going to depend a little bit on the weather. We look like we have a great window there. It could be very much shorter than that if everything goes just right.
Us guys down in southeast Oklahoma don't want to hear y'all talking about rain up here.
I
And
spent
the
some time down there
difficulties
as
of
well. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do we have any questions that anybody has on this item before we move on? Okay, that's an update item. We are ready for the awards.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, Commissioners. Item 80 is our recommendations for the May 21st letting. It is recommended that the following items from the letting referred to by call order be awarded to the low bidders. Call order 5, 20, 30, 40, 45, 47, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 95, 110, 140, 150, 160, 170, 175, 180, 192, 200, 210, 220, 230, 250, 255, 260, 270, and 280. It is recommended that the following items from the letting referred to by call order be rejected. Call orders 120 and 290. This concludes the recommendations for award. Your approval is requested.
You've heard the recommendation on item 80.
Motion for approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll hear item 81.
Good morning again. Agenda item 81 is the fiscal year 2016 budget work program for a total of $1.7 billion. $1.3 billion for highways, $314 million for counties, $22 million for transit, and $50 for rail. Major revenue sources funding the 2016 budget include $184.9 million of the State Transportation Fund, which is down from 2015, $12.5 million. Income tax collections is at $476.5 million, an increase from 2015 in the amount of $59.7. $621 million in federal funds from FHWA, $126 million from the motor vehicle collections. $120 of that is for the CURB program, which is capped going forward. Major expenditure categories are the construction program at $765 million, including both federal and state, $88 million for right-of-way, $120 for engineering contracts, and $160 million for maintenance program, which is an increase from last year, up from $155.5. It's anticipated that budget revisions will occur throughout the year, and those revisions will be submitted to the commission as they are needed and require approval. The department requests and recommends approval of this budget totaling $1.7 billion.
You meant 471.5 million, didn't you? Not 476?
It's actually 476. There's a typo
Typo
in
there
the.
in our information.
That's just
Okay.
for highways. 471 is just for highways.
Gotcha.
So, are there any questions? Anybody?
You've heard the recommendation.
So moved
Have a
to
motion?
approve.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure, Director Patterson, are you going to talk a little bit about the anticipated impact on our budget vis-a-vis the, okay.
You'll include that with the emergency projects immediately following me. So,
Any further questions? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll hear item 82, which is the revisions, and you're still with us.
I know I can't go away today. Agenda item 82 has 4 parts to the 2015 budget. For budget revisions, Part A is an increase in capital outlay funded with prior year carryover of federal funding, federal revenue for engineering contracts, bridge contracts, and construction projects. Part B is a transfer from engineering to engineering contracts in the amount of $9 million utilizing state funds. And Part C is an increase to the ITS projects in the amount of $750,000 funded with prior year federal carryover. And Part D is a transfer within the CURB program from construction to engineering contracts in the amount of $5 million. And the department requests and recommends approval of this item.
You've heard the
Thank you.
recommendation for the revisions. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll hear item 83. If you don't have the amended item 83, it'll be provided to anyone that does not have it. Everybody have it? I believe they do. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Secretary. Item 83 is a declaration of emergency on US 271 in Pushmataha County. I'm going to read this into the record since it's an emergency. Since early spring of last year, Division II has faced extreme difficulties in maintaining US 271 south of Clayton due to unstable subsurface condition. Recently, a section of the roadway approximately 5 miles south of Clayton has begun to fail, and Division II was forced to close one lane to traffic. Repair of the slide area is beyond the capability of Division II forces. On May 22nd, under the authority of Title 61, Section 130 and Commission rules, I declared an emergency situation existed and authorized the preparation of repair plans and the use of expedited bidding and contracting procedures. Subsequent to my declaration of emergency and before any action could be taken, the slide area continued to fail. Repair of the slide is now expected to exceed $750,000, which is my authority. On Tuesday, May 26, the department entered into a contract in the amount of $389,900 with Geostabilizing International for temporary stabilization of the slide area to prevent the slide from further failing. Division II forces will perform the necessary surfacing to return the roadway to service. Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is as it explains here, this has been a situation that's been going on for about 12 months, but certainly exacerbated by the heavy rainfall that Commissioner Burridge mentioned earlier and we've all experienced in the last 2 weeks. So as this slide began, and Anthony was kind enough to update us virtually hourly as the crack continued to increase in both in width and depth, you could almost see or foretell what was eventually going to happen, and it did. So the roadway is impassable at this point, but this emergency contract that we've entered into under my authority was simply to stop the slide from continuing any further. The roadway is nowhere in repair to be able to be used by the public, and we'll address that in the next agenda item. Any questions on this one?
Do any of you guys care about what's happening to us down there?
Sure we do.
With unanimous consent, we'll insert agenda item number 86 to be presented by the director. Is there any objection? It's an additional item. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 86 is a request of the Department for Commission approval of a declaration of emergency at 3 locations: US 271 in Pushmataha County, State Highway 1 in LaFleur County, and State Highway 82 in Haskell County. Part A, Division 2 has faced extreme difficulty in maintaining portions of US 271 south of Clayton. On May 22nd, I declared an emergency to expedite repair of a slide area. However, before action could be taken, the slide area continued to fail, resulting in both lanes being closed, and permanent repair now estimated to exceed the $750,000 limit of the Director's Emergency Authority. Under my original declaration, the department has entered into a contract to temporarily stabilize the area to prevent worsening of conditions. At this time, it is requested that the Commission declare an emergency and authorize the department to use expedited procedures to contract for permanent repair of this slide. The total repair cost is expected to be $1.3 million. Repairs are expected to be completed by September 1st. Part B, Division 2 has also suffered a slide on State Highway 1 in LaFleur County, commonly referred to as Talamina Drive. This slide area is located approximately 1 mile east of US 271. The slide is 250 feet long and both lanes are currently closed. At this time, it is requested that the Commission declare an emergency and authorize the department to use expedited procedures to contract for the repair of this slide. The repair cost is expected to be $300,000, and those repairs are expected to be completed by August 1st. Part C, not to be left out, Division 1 has suffered a slide on State Highway 82 in Haskell County. This slide is located approximately 2 miles south of State Highway 31. The slide is approximately 250 feet long and has closed the outside lane and shoulder. At this time, it is requested that the Commission declare an emergency and authorize the department to use expedited procedures to contract for the repair of this slide. The repair cost is expected to be $250,000, and those repairs should be completed by July 15th. The department requests and recommends approval of this item.
Do we have a motion on these emergency items?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler.
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin.
Yes.
Mr. Love.
Aye.
Mr. Burridge.
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee.
Yes.
Mr. Alexander.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess.
Aye.
Thank you. The item passes. We'll hear the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I want to do with the director's report is Paul Green's going to take you a tour of Division 2.
Good morning again. As the rain started falling before Memorial Day weekend, I think we all realized that instead of going to the lake was coming to us. And I'll tell you, Division 2 responded in a big way. And this was the slide at Clayton on US 271, south of Clayton, 5 miles, 5.5. And this is what it looked like on the Thursday, May 21st. By Friday, it had went to opening up quite a bit and probably doubled in depth of the slide. And on this Friday is when Division 2 and Mr. E. Kelly shut down US 271. This is what it looked like on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And it had some torrential rains in that time frame that happened, and there's a lot of water coming out of the hill and underneath the roadway that's causing that to slip and fall down the hillside, if you will. So Anthony had a contractor on site and ready to start looking at that, and actually had proposed a different repair. But obviously with the degree of the slide changing, then that repair had to change as well. I just really wanted to point out how quickly those slides can go on you. He had already been working with a contractor before this happened to try to get some work done. So that's about 19 to 24 inches that it fell in that area, just the pavement. If you go outside the guardrail, it fell about 6 feet. This is a rock slide, and this didn't show up on the emergencies. We're still working on what to do with this. But this is on US 259, 4 miles south of State Highway 63 in LaFleur County. And if you look at the shelf up there, it's about 2.5 foot thick. And it's getting stopped in the ditch most of the time. They went and cleared this one day, and I believe that was on Memorial Day. And the day after, it was filled up again. So it's a big concern to us, and we're trying to make sure that we're protecting everybody in that area as well. This slide is State Highway 82, 2 miles south of State Highway 31 in Haskell County. This is in Division 1. Mr. Saliba let us know about this on the 26th as well. And it's a big slide down the hill. And this area has a lot of truck traffic that comes down that hill if you look in the background there, and trucks come down that quite fast and have a hard time braking. So it's definitely needed to get that outside lane and the shoulder back for the safety of the traveling public. This is the State Highway 1, Talamina Drive, 1 mile south of US 271 in LaFleur County. Again, this is an early picture by, I believe this was on the 27th. It had already doubled in depth again, and the width of the slide started moving some more. So we're working very diligently to try to get the contractor out to catch that before it goes down the hill. As you might imagine, these are very difficult to get down the hill and work on those slides. It's from very difficult terrain. We thought we'd show you some pictures from the company that's doing the repairs, some of the types of slides they've addressed in the past. You can see they had an old soldier pile wall there that failed on a project. So the North Carolina DOT asked Geostabilizing Incorporated to come in and fix that. And they do it with soil nails that go back into the rock formation. And then they also build a wall and have some rock fill in between that wall. And again, this is the outside wall and what it looks like at the end of the day. This method really helps us a lot in that we don't own a lot of right-of-way along these roads, and to fix a slide, maybe you'd have to go down 70, 100 feet in a lot of cases. So this can get us back in business, just working just off the shoulder of the road, if you will, a few feet. And again, that gets us through the slides.
Mr. Chairman, I would be remiss if I didn't speak a little bit about the damage that we've had on our state-owned railroads. And I'll do this rather quickly. Just similar kind of washouts. These are, again, railroads that are owned by the state that lease to operators. And they are, operators are having challenges with, obviously, with some of this, with all of these issues. So we, through our rail division, Craig Moody is working with our leasees to rectify some of these challenges. But this, and the importance of some of this has to do with it's harvest season. And it's, you know, when you get out west, the farmers are really relying on it, and if you'll recall, back in the early 80s, that's why we retained ownership and bought these abandoned railroads, was to make sure that there was access for agriculture to the market. So we're going to do what we can to help our operators. On the 26th, Casey, Shell, and I had the great opportunity to tour a lot of the flooding issues and by helicopter. And I want to acknowledge my appreciation to the Department of Public Safety for making that aircraft available to us so we could make several stops in a single day. This following is a video of what we saw that day. And so I'll just let her in just a minute. But these are other locations. Oh, here's State Highway 7 in Comanche County. One way in and one way out of Kingfisher when it floods. Here's some of our guys trying to deal with trees that flowed into us. This is the State Highway 99 bridge that we've had challenges with just south of Tishomingo. And I don't know, is Paul, is it still look like that, Paul?
It's 2 feet over, it had been 4 feet, it's down to 2.
Now it's down to 2. Oh, good. So it's still covered up. But I understand while we were there, the fishing was great. So there's something good to do. This is the Roosevelt Bridge. When we and I don't know, I don't remember if we see it in the video, but when Casey and I flew over, everything to the right of the road, all the buildings you could see them, but now they're covered up. Ultimately, the Roosevelt Bridge has been closed. There's some guardrail.
Anthony, did you close that? Did that wind up getting closed?
To that point, Mr. Secretary, both the 259 and the 271 bridge have closed since we took them. And obviously the Roosevelt closed as well. This, the significance of the Roosevelt for me on that particular day was I also heard a story later that day that there were some people fishing. They got on one side of the bridge, couldn't get back underneath the bridge, and so they had to get out of their boat and people had to come get them by automobile. You know, the lake was rising so quickly, they got under it in the morning and couldn't get back by noon. So challenges all around. We currently have, as of yesterday afternoon, we had 30 roads closed, still due to high water, bridges and roads. We're down to 29, one opened this morning. So we're optimistic that as the days go on, more and more bridges and roadways will be opened. And then that's when the fun begins. That's when we're going to see exactly what's going on. But before I get onto that, I do want to leave you, I do want to say a couple things. 2 years ago, when we dealt with the tornado and the volunteerism of our colleagues here at ODOT was unsurpassed. We came up with a slogan at that time called ODOT Strong. And I think, Commissioners, you saw our employees do that again this Memorial Day weekend and the days before and the days since. They sacrificed that often treasured holiday and graduations and graduation parties to be out on the side of the road, out trying to fix something or keep people from running off the road into high water. We had a situation on the 26th, I think it was, or the 25th. I think it was the 25th, Memorial Day evening, Paul. Tornadoes hit southeast Oklahoma. We had folks out flagging traffic 24 hours a day, so they're out standing in the rain, flagging traffic, and here comes the tornado, and we're scurrying around trying to get them under cover. But that just speaks to the dedication of this agency, to the dedication of our maintenance and construction employees to be out in harm's way trying to help the public get about the business of commerce and transportation. So kudos to those fine people that sacrificed.
Mike, how many people do you think you had involved in the last month at any given time?
I think at any given time, Mr. Secretary, we had 1,000 people out on the road, not counting all the people that were involved ancillary to that, but we had clearly 1,000 people on the road. Just a huge effort. One thing I will mention, and I mentioned it a couple of years ago, again, going back to the rains and storms of 2013. Guys, we're a little bit behind on our mowing. If you'll give us a chance, we'll get caught up. We've been kind of tied up. It was too wet to mow, and it's going to be too wet to mow in some locations because we're going to bog down up to our hubs and with our mowers. So to give us just a little bit of a chance to dry out, rest up, we'll get after it. But it's our intention to, don't think that the tall grass means we've given up. We just need to sit down for a second, take a break. So as we begin with waters receding, we're going to have additional emergency challenges because we don't know what's underneath the water. Anthony tells a story, and I love to tell this. Water flowing over US 70, for a few days it was pretty smooth. It was just kind of, and now it kind of ripples up like there's something wrong underneath. So I'm sure the surface is messed up and we're going to have to repair that, but we don't know what else needs to be repaired. I point to the Washita Bridge on State Highway 99, south of Tishomingo. That bridge, you may recall, had some challenges, and we recently put wooden cribbing underneath the bridge to support it. We're not sure the cribbing's still there. You know, we'd like to think it maintained its place to support the bridge while the water's been flowing, but I kind of question that. So it's going to take quite a while for the water to recede. If the cribbing's still there, we'll have to get out and inspect it and make sure it's in good shape. If it's not there, we're going to have to rebuild it, but it'll have to dry out before we can do that. So we have some real challenges, Mr. Chairman. And as we all know, the state is kind of tilted that direction, so everything flows to southeast Oklahoma, as we all know. And so you'll be the last to dry out, but not the last forgotten. So we're gonna stay focused on all parts of the state because we have closures all across the state. Every division except for Division 6 had road closures. But that doesn't mean Division 6 wasn't involved, because they were helping with traffic control and lending manpower to the other divisions in need. But as we get into this ER process, we're also reaching out to the counties, because the counties have issues that will both involve us with our ER program and Director Ashwood with the FEMA program, depending on what kind of road or bridge we're looking at, whether it's a major collector or a minor collector or a lesser categorized road. So we have already received our acknowledgement back from the Federal Highway Administration for the ER program, so that we will begin expediting our process both on our system as situations are known, and on the county system as their situations are known. We've reached out to the county commissioners with the help of ACO and Randy Robinson, and made direct contact with the county commissioners as well, so that we can begin the process of communication between the county commissioners and us, so that we both understand the projects and the documentation that's going to be required to do ER projects. But in addition to that, last week the governor asked the department to elevate our cooperation and with the counties. And so we're putting together a plan that we can bring to the commission, an expedited projects that would be let to contract through the CIRB program. So we are beginning that process as well. Shannon Shefford is visiting with the county commissioner this afternoon in Canadian County that we believe has a project that will fit that model perfectly. Of course, we still have to go through all the right-of-way and utilities and environment, but a lot of these projects won't involve those. It's just putting the road back exactly where it was, and we can expedite this whole thing, bring it to you, and get the road replaced through CIRB funding. But as it was pointed up by the chairman this morning, we have to communicate with not only ourselves, but the county commissioners of the availability of these funds, the ER funds and the FEMA funds. And so we're going to continue that communication. We don't want people spending money that they didn't have to, out of their pocket, that they could have gotten from the Federal Highway Administration or FEMA. So we're going to continue that conversation and make sure that that happens. So later this week, we hope to sit down with the county commissioners face-to-face with the guys from ODOT that really have all the details and really get into the bread and butter of the program. Mr. Chairman, if I might, Director Ashwood, would you like to comment on where you're at?
Thank you very much, Director Patterson. I too would like to echo how outstanding a job ODOT has done over the years working with us and working with the counties to help them through their time of disaster. Good news is the drought's over. Unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do out there. You look at the counties, and we're talking about, when we talk about FEMA funds, we're talking about the non-major collectors, what we can do to help out the commissioners in that sense. Last week, Tuesday, we received a presidential disaster declaration for the floods that we have been having and experiencing from May 5th ongoing, but it was only for individual assistance, 3 counties. It was for Oklahoma County, Grady County, and Cleveland County. Now, there's a reason for that. It's because that's the easiest thing to assess right off the bat. You can assess the individuals that are victims, how many houses are major damaged, how many destroyed, so on and so forth. The good news is we got the declaration. The easy part is then adding on assistance, whether it be infrastructure assistance or additional counties, to the declaration that you now have from the president. It doesn't have to go back to the White House. So for the last 10 days or so, we've been doing damage assessments. with the federal government of infrastructure damages, primarily in southeastern Oklahoma. That's because that's the only number of teams that we could field at the time with the federal inspectors limited. And last Friday, we asked for 16 counties to be declared for public assistance, which is infrastructure damages. I anticipate hearing that approved probably either today or tomorrow. And at the same time, we're still doing more assessments. So I think when it's all said and done, just from previous history in this, we'll probably have 50 or more counties declared for public assistance. We will have to go back out after the assessments are done, and they're declared to go out and actually write the project worksheets. That's where we go to the individual sites, look at the damages they have with the commissioner, agree on the scope of work, again, not the price, the scope of work. In other words, this road is damaged, how much fill is it going to need, how much of labor, how much equipment, and everything else. Once you agree on that, then there's a cost code that goes to it, and that figures out how much it costs. The good news is, since if you remember back, and you probably don't, but when they passed this law originally that provides federal assistance going back to 1988, the Stafford Act, Congress was actually very wise in knowing that it's one thing to pass a law that provides assistance, but if you do it strictly on reimbursement, those local commissioners don't have the kind of capital that can go out and do the work and then get reimbursed. So they divided up assistance between what they call large projects and small projects. So you had small projects that we could pay up front, and they could do all the work on that as well, utilize it for the larger ones as well. And then you had the large projects, mostly bridges, that you'd come back in and reimburse as needed based on the documentation that came back in. The good news is they've actually changed the rules since our last disaster, and the small project, large project number has gone up to where now I can advance money for projects that are anything under $121,600. So that's a lot of money that can go out there very quickly once that project worksheet is done. So I think it's going to help the commissioners a great deal and get money out in the field very quickly to help them out. Now, what does concern me is they also changed the rules on procurement because I used to go out and I used to tell commissioners, don't throw your hands up in the air and say this is a disaster and throw away all your rules. Follow your current procurement rules, your current bidding procedures, and you will be fine. Well, that's not really true anymore. You have to follow federal bidding procedures and federal procurement procedures. So we're going to be working with ACO, and we're going to be working with ODOT as well to make sure we get this information out to the commissioners that they don't paint themselves into a corner and get themselves into trouble where we can't reimburse them. So that's where we are. Like I said, patience is the key here. It's just a matter of how quickly we can do the assessments, get back in, get them turned on, and then go back out and actually write the project worksheets. But I anticipate that all actually money out the door probably within just the next few weeks. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Certainly,
Yes.
we have some questions.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those members of the commission, Director Ashwood has been in his job, please correct me if I'm wrong, Director, longer than any other emergency director in the United States. Is that correct?
Yes, I've never been offered a better job.
Yes, sir. And so consequently, Director Ashwood is the best we can find, best in the country at doing his job, and I can assure you he knows how to spend every dollar that's available of federal funds in an emergency. We couldn't ask for a better person to have running the show in what I believe is probably the worst flood statewide flood that we've ever had. And I wanted to make sure that the commission knows that the Turnpike Authority, along with the Department of Transportation, is going to supply you with however many people you need to help in your assessment and your assistance as needed, and we certainly want to help county governments, local unit of governments. They certainly are up against it for sure, in anything that we can do within statutes. Well, I know that Mike and you are going to be able to provide, and we thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that, Secretary Ridley, and we're planning on doing a training with the FEMA staff as well as the engineers you provide and my staff later this week, to where we can sit down and talk about nothing but gravel roads. because there's a real difference of opinion on eligibility when it comes to gravel roads. Whether it's just pulling up the gravel from the bar ditches and reshaping, that's one thing, but then actually doing much larger, much detailed damages. I want to make sure that every inspector we send out in the field has the exact same training. So we're looking for that consistency regardless of which county we go to.
Probably the comment I would make, and I'd extend this to Gene and Randy too, is, the last couple of disasters we had down there, tornado and the bad freeze, we really need a lot of education on the local level, with the county commissioners, mayors, it's not just ODOT and the Turnpike Authority. Is maybe you need to have more than one training, and it needs to be, to get that information really to them so we make the right decisions. We may be a little harder headed down there than some of the other
we will
folks.
continue to do that, and we actually bring the state auditor and inspector with us because we know you're going to be audited just like we are. So we want to make sure we cover those things before we ever get out there and start handing out the money.
Well, one suggestion that I would make, and I'll leave it at this, there's a lot of different people involved. And when you tell one group and you're tired of delivering your message and somebody else asks the question again, instead of the answer being, well, we've already gone over that, is to go over it again.
I don't think we've ever done that. If we have, please by all means tell me.
Well,
But we're very good about making sure that every group knows about this.
Well, I
and
don't
exactly
say
what
that
the changes are.
as a criticism.
No, sure.
I'm just, those two disasters, as I traveled around and watched what was going on, communication.
And one of the biggest problems we have, and we bring this forward again, it gets back to consistency. And what will happen is you'll have one federal inspector who will come in and say, okay, I'm writing you up for this project, this is all eligible, here's, $500,000 or whatever it costs. And then 2 weeks later, a different inspector comes in and says, well, this is all ineligible. And we have a problem with that.
I didn't want to specifically say that.
So, no, we understand that. So the way we're trying to combat that is to take the federal inspector out of the business and basically have only state-managed disasters. They still have federal funds, but we have state-managed disasters. In other words, our inspectors that go out are just as trained and equipped as any federal inspector they can send us. But it will be the exact same person your commissioner's working with every time. So before long, you're not going to ineligible projects. Everybody's on the same page. So I think that will take care of a lot of it, and we realize that. We realize that a lot of the inspectors that come in, again, with multiple disasters across the nation, that a lot of them are just trained to a very limited basis, and then they're sent in here to write project worksheets that can really change people's budgets, change their lives. So we want to make sure that in Oklahoma they have that consistency. And there is something to said about rumors too that go out there. I dealt with a rumor this weekend. I was told that again on the Red River that we needed to use National Guard helicopters to actually airlift cattle out from a stranded area. And I was told that we did that back in 1990. They made the mistake. I was there in 1990. We did not do that. So, but we'll work those issues out.
I really appreciate you expanding your comments. You really made me feel comfortable.
Anything else? Any other questions?
No.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And Albert brings up a great point with the changes with the FEMA program. We also have changes with the ER program, where before it was everything was reimbursable. With recent changes now, there's some upfront money that we can receive as well, based on our aggregate damage assessments. And so as we develop those, then the Federal Highway Administration will be able to advance us some money. Mr. Chairman, if I might, could we call on Gene Wallace to give a county's perspective on the damages?
I don't know if we've got that much time.
You know Gene Wallace as well as we do, don't you?
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I do get paid by the month, so you may not have that much time. But, let me say something first of all about Albert Ashwood. Not only is he probably the finest emergency management director in the United States, he's from Muskogee, Oklahoma. So he is a four-star state director. But thank you on behalf of the counties, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We're not going to take long. I will tell you everything that's been said. We've been doing this now for the last 9 to 10 days. Communication is the primary goal that we have. In fact, we had a meeting, Randy and I and some other staff, not 15 minutes before we came, about changing the way we communicate to make sure that there's a tremendous difference between giving message and understanding the message once they get it. And so we're trying to delineate our messages where they absolutely are on spot to the point that we don't have these myths that develop out there. I'm fairly new to the position, as you well know, but I've spent the last 32 years working with disaster declarations across our great country, so it's not a new exercise for us. But for our local elected officials, who this is probably what they do best, and they respond from the middle of the night to early in the morning when they have a crisis every holiday, as Director Patterson has talked about. But there's just some things you get to the point that they're much larger than the scope that they can actually handle. But the wonderful thing about not only Mr. Ashwood's office, but the entire state of Oklahoma, our phone has not quit ringing. And I call it kind of somewhat like the rural firefighters association. They're not necessarily organized, but if a fire gets out, they all grab a burlap bag and they start fighting fire. And that's what's happening in the state of Oklahoma today. We've got every agency calling. We're going to put a conference call together with the governor's office tomorrow. And the one thing that we've known from the past disasters is we do not want any after effects in having the wrong information. So we appreciate the invitation to be here today. We're going to hold hands with you throughout this exercise. We all know what our jobs are, and we're going to do our best to fulfill them. So on behalf of the counties and elected officials, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I had on the ER program. Was there any questions that were not answered?
Mr. Secretary.
Director, I'd like to, we have Gary Carino here, Federal Highway Administration, and I'd like to ask Gary a couple of questions. As we talked about, Gary, the event that has taken place is probably, in my short tenure with the agency, I've never seen it. Consequently, as Mr. Director Ashwood pointed out, there may be up to 60 counties that could very well have damage, and probably do have damage, that'll meet the FEMA requirements. And we have a statewide declaration on ER funds. So what I guess I want to make sure that we have a commitment from Federal Highways, because on the ER locations, you have to have an inspector out there to approve those projects, do you not?
That's correct.
Do you have enough staff to be able to do that, not only on the state system, because we're used to dealing with that, but on the county system where we may very well have 60, 70 counties that are going to have damage that will qualify for ER funds. Do you have staff to be able to handle that? And if so, are they going to be where they can run 7 days a week until we get done with this?
Mr. Secretary, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And let me just say that I have personally been working with Director Patterson for some time now in preparing for this event. And we have, as he mentioned, we have approved the ER event itself. We're in the process of doing the quick release of the advance funding for it as well, instead of just having it on a reimbursement basis as it has been in the past. And my staff stands ready to work with your staff. FHWA Strong will stand with ODOT Strong and moving ahead with this effort. And if for some reason I need additional staff than what I have in my office, I will reach out to our agency throughout the country to get the staff that we need. And believe me, we will not hold you up or we will stand behind you and help you and assist you in any way we can, and we will not hold up or restrict anything you need to do to take care of the situation.
Very good. I really appreciate the commitment on federal highways, and because I do know that you have limited amount of staff and we have a really big problem, and your willingness to reach out to your other counterparts across the country is important in case you need to do so.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any further questions or comment by the commission?
I had a question. Director, do you and your division engineering staff, you guys feel like you've got a pretty good game plan for what you're going to be doing? The water recedes. You now have what you have. You can see what you have, and all the testing that you're going to need to do on the pavement, all the inspection of possibly washed out bridges, all the things that you guys need to do. Do you feel like you have a good game plan in place to be able to do that and do it fairly quickly?
Commissioner Love, I believe we have a good game plan in place for what we don't know. Certainly, as we've all talked, we're not sure what's out there, but we're ready to mobilize as things become known. We will reach out to our consulting partners to help us with bridge inspections or roadway inspections, whatever we need, but we have a tremendously intelligent staff here at ODOT. We think we've got enough people, but if not, we will reach out, because as the Secretary mentioned, we've committed to help the counties as well. So we may have some of our staff working with the counties, may have to bring in consultants to help on our stuff. But I believe the game plan's in place. We just need the water to recede so we can get started.
Do you have any other comments? I think it's safe to say we're not overwhelmed yet.
Understood.
And I want to comment that I really appreciate from being a commissioner, and I'm sure these guys feel the same way, is how you guys have worked to keep the roads open. Now, I don't know about every area because I didn't pay attention to them, but ODOT has kept roads open and done it safely. And whereas, some other places may not have done that. And what that means is people got to go home, they got to go to work, they got to continue their business, and that's a big deal. It's easy to go and close a road, very easy. But it's hard to close a road and keep it closed when people are driving through barricades and doing unsafe things. And I appreciate our guys. I know that some of them were having to go and check those barricades, I don't know, Anthony, every hour. And put them back up and devise methods so that they wouldn't destroy them, and we could still use them, but the people that had a little bit of bad judgment could get through them and try it, But I applaud you guys, and you guys representing the county for keeping roads open, because it makes a difference to all of us when you close one needlessly or you don't do it in a safe manner. So thank you guys for that. Any other comments or questions?
I have a couple more items.
You
Mr.
bet.
Chairman. Question by Commissioner Love earlier about the budget, and I appreciate your approval of the budget going forward for the next fiscal year. As we went through the legislative process, we knew that we were going to be part of the legislative shortfall, the budget shortfall solution. So, and we were anticipating something to be less, but we weren't sure what it was going to be until the final negotiations were done in the waning hours of the legislative session. At one point, the department was up for about $80 million, but through the efforts of many including those negotiators, it was finally settled that we would take a $12.5 million reduction in our motor fuel tax over the previous year. So as Shelley told you earlier, our motor fuel tax collections for next year will be $184 million, down from $197. Now that is less than the amount that was certified by the Board of Equalization, but please know this, Commissioners, we will continue to deliver on the 8-year plan. As part of this budget, and as I mentioned last month, we have increased our maintenance budget. And we will keep our asset preservation plan at the level it's been at for the last 2 years. All of that to be saying that we're not going to forsake maintenance. We have spent a lot of time, our citizens have spent a lot of money putting in new bridges and new roadways, and we're not going to let those go unmaintained. So we're going to continue to increase our maintenance budget going forward. There is a trend that I see that is a bit disturbing, and that's the reduction in motor fuel tax year after year. So we're going to have to address that going forward. Secretary Ridley and I have been in conversation with some people that are going to help us with an education process. And we will be meeting with them throughout the summer. And these people are economists and transportation folks that understand transportation finance, and so they're going to be helping us put together a program that we can educate legislators and stakeholders and the public on what transportation means to Oklahoma. There's a couple of projects that you awarded today that are fairly significant. One is on I-40 and Radio Road. It's a new interchange. You may recall the governor some years ago, along with then CEO of Chesapeake, Aubrey McClendon, announced in a formal presentation a collaboration between the agency and Chesapeake to build an interchange there, one of our public-private partnerships. That project has come to fruition, and you awarded that today, so we will begin construction on that new interchange near El Reno on I-40. The other one that I want to mention, it kind of goes in, because it's so small, relatively speaking, but it's intersection modification on Santa Fe here in Oklahoma City at 36th Street and 50th Street. That's really the beginning of the next phases of the widening of I-235 in the interchange with I-44. We had to do those intersection modifications so they could become truck routes and increase the turning movement for trucks so that we could do the other things that we need to do on I-235. So that little project is going to manifest into a much broader effort. And I would be remiss, Mr. Chairman, if I could mention just two pieces of legislation that were passed during this last session that are huge for the safety of our workers and the traveling public. The first one was by Representative Hoskin and Senator Paddock, and it expanded the move over law. You may be familiar with the move over law, where you have to move over to the left lane if law enforcement has somebody pulled over. That's actually a law. Most of us do it out of courtesy, but it is a law. They expanded that to include highway workers. So if our guys are out on the side of the road picking up litter, whatever they're doing, move over. And so that is now a law. The other one was by Senator Stanislawski and Representative Sanders that provided us with variable speed zones. Heretofore, we've not been able to put enforceable speed zones in maintenance work zones. We always have them for construction work zones, but for maintenance work zones, we now have an opportunity to slow the public down and have that as an enforceable speed limit. So we're really appreciative of these four authors and certainly the governor for signing these two measures, just to provide additional safety to not only the traveling public, but to our workers. And one more thing, Mr. Chairman, I know this is a long meeting and it's hot in this room, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention an individual. This guy is one of our servant leaders here at ODOT. This guy wants to walk away from ODOT without any fanfare, because that's the kind of guy he is. But Paul Rachel is leaving at the end of this month. This is his last commission meeting. And he probably standing back there, if he's looking at me now, he's saying, "You lied to me." But I didn't lie to you, Paul, because I said we're not going to do a party. But it wasn't that we're not going to acknowledge your tremendous effort. Paul was one of these guys, not many of people were born in Wewoka, Oklahoma, but Paul was. And so he graduated high school there, went to Oklahoma State University, got his engineering degree, came to work at ODOT for a whole month, and then he left. I was surprised. But I learned this several years ago because Paul and I share something. We're both aviators. He doesn't fly as much as he used to, but he left after a month and joined the Air Force. So in May of '71, he came to work. In June of '71, he left. He joined the Air Force and spent 4 years flying. And then he came back to ODOT. And he went to work in our IT area. Now, you kind of think that's kind of odd, but he provided such knowledge to the IT area about engineering issues. He changed the way we do business. Our old maintenance management system, our old maintenance reporting system, Paul Rachel. It was the base upon which many of our IT systems are based today. From there, in 1979, he moved to the maintenance division, and in '83 became the assistant DE in maintenance. All the while, just doing what he does. He doesn't talk much, but he works hard. In 1991, which is a date that's hard for me to believe, January of '91, he became the division engineer in Division 3 in Ada, and has tirelessly worked as the division engineer in Ada. He's, as I said, he's not one to talk a lot, but he speaks loud with his actions. He speaks loud with his presence. And Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to give Paul Rachel a round of applause. Mr. Chairman, I'd really like Paul to come up and say something. I don't know if he will, but if he does come up, and while he's walking up, I know Commissioner Overland has some words that he'd like to express.
If I can, I'm just going to tell those that are here, the first call I ever received when I was appointed commissioner was from Paul Rachel. And I said, "Man, I don't know anything about this." And he said, "Hey, let's just sit down and let's talk about it, and I'll tell you everything I know." And over the last, 14 years or so, his patience and knowledge with me and talking about issues in a layman's viewpoint has really made me look good. But he's a good man and a good and decent man. He's a man of faith, and I'm going to miss him, because he could call me anytime, but anytime and I could call him anytime, but anytime we were with a crowd or in a meeting, his calmness and patience got other people calmed down that should be angry. And I know that the commissioner that preceded me was close with him, and I just say it's a sad day for ODOT, but a good day for Paul. Thanks, Paul.
You know, I've known Paul for, I think I was 16 when Paul became division engineer. So he's been there a while. The field division engineers, as they do now, Casey, would come around the various divisions and have a division meeting. And Sparlin Rose was a division engineer out west that I work for as his assistant, as one of his assistants. And I put some place tags for the division engineers as they were coming that day. And because I used to call the 8 field division engineers Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and all of them thought they were Snow White. And Sparlin asked me, he said, well, have you got names? Have you decided which one is which? And Bob, I'm not going to tell you which one I had you ask, but or Sparlin. But there was no doubt in my mind who Doc was with Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and that was Paul. As you pointed out, Commissioner, you couldn't make Paul Rachel do something wrong. I mean, you just couldn't do it. He is by far the most cerebral guy that I've ever been around. He has helped me with a lot of things, changed my mind on so many things, and he didn't do it argumentatively. He was able to change it logically and relentlessly. He would stay focused on something, and he'd stay after you until he convinced you that the way he was wanting to do something was right, and 99% of the time he was right. But he is a longtime friend, somebody that's going to be sorely missed by this agency. And again, you're never worried about the Ada Division, Division 3, whether it was being taken care of, because he was always on top of every issue. Paul, we're going to miss you. This agency will miss you. I will certainly miss you personally, and we hate to see you go, but we love you, guy. We really do.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you for not having a party for Paul. I really appreciate that. And as I expected, he's waved me off. He's not going to say any words because, again, he's a man of few words, and he's very humble about what he does. But I know that he and his wife, Dinda, are going to have a wonderful time. They love to travel. They love going to see their family. Paul is, as everyone has said, this agency will miss you. And you know where you can come anytime you want to. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Paul, the only thing I'll say is you are a great man and you've represented ODOT well, but you have to come up here and take a picture.
All of us, let's go.
Let's go.
All of us?
Yeah.
Hang behind you in case that knee gets out.
No, I'm good. Well, how many can you get in on this picture?
I'm gonna get out of your way. If you can't see me, I can't see you. Let's get some, Russell, come over there. Everybody smile it this way. Couple more. One more, please. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks. How about a picture with the field lead real quick?
Going upstairs, right on again.
You want me to hold your man purse? Okay.
I know they're completely, see what you did, Greg? Everything's out of hand.
Almost lost my job.
Keep the blood sugar up here, son. Pass out.
It's pretty warm in here.
Smile, Bob.
Prior to hearing a motion for adjournment, I want to again brag on ODOT for their response and how they've handled this latest flood incident and taken all the angst out that you can take out. But it would also remind everybody that after all the debris is cleaned up and the roads are open, as the Secretary and the Director said many times, the road surfaces are in bad shape, and none of us need to forget that. And you got any more comments? Do you have any more comments? I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Fiddler?
Aye.
Mr. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Aye.
Mr. Burridge?
Yes.
Mr. Huckabee?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
All right.
Meeting adjourned.